August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica. With 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel.
This was very important that after the conclusion of World War II, Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. It was supposed to be that they would go in December, January, February, and March, and there was a list of military goals that they were to achieve. But by the end of February, something happened.
One of the mission's official goals was investigating sites for potential military bases in Antarctica. But during his explorations, Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip, but something he held back and then later was suppressed by government authorities that found it frightening.
In his diary, which was discovered by his son after his death, Admiral Byrd tells an extraordinary story.
Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. I mean, it was temperate. His squadron flew under the Earth, into the Earth.
It turns into this lush and green area, and he can't even believe his eyes. But that's just the beginning of his extraordinary story. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying disc-shaped objects around them that lead him to the ground. Whereupon he's escorted into a cavernous type of an area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master in his diary. The Master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons and how they've recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they really are concerned about what is going on the surface of the planet. They tell Admiral Byrd that they hope that humanity will ultimately stop this.
For UFO researchers, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant due to the fact that the modern UFO era began right after World War II and the detonation of the first atomic bombs. It has also been noted that a high number of UFO sightings have been reported in the vicinity of nuclear missile silos.
Admiral Byrd's story is congruent with the stories that we hear from numerous accounts of angelic or extraterrestrial type beings that are very concerned about what humanity is doing with nuclear weapons. Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos, the nuclear missile silos, that have seen their silos and their nuclear arms disarmed by what are perceived to be extraterrestrial beings. They're very concerned that we are ultimately not just going to destroy ourselves, but could harm our planet, which is their world as well.
If Admiral Byrd's secret diary is authentic, does it reveal not only that there are highly advanced beings living inside the Earth, but also that they are monitoring what happens on the surface? According to the diary, after this incredible encounter, Admiral Byrd was eager to share his story, but was ordered to remain silent.
Byrd comes back after this experience. He is taken to a government compound where he is told that he is never to speak of this publicly and that everything he says is classified.
Could Admiral Byrd's story point to a profound connection between the ancient traditions of strange beings living inside the Earth and the modern-day UFO phenomenon? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and believe we may be fast approaching the time when we will find ourselves face to face with the beings of inner Earth. Antarctica is a land of extremes. Nearly 98% of the ground is covered by an ice sheet up to 3 miles thick. A mountain as towering as Japan's Mount Fuji at 12,400 feet would not even break the surface. Temperatures regularly fall below minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, with winds of up to 200 miles an hour. During its peak season, it is home to only 4,000 scientists and military personnel.
Antarctica is the last frontier. It holds our imagination. Old maps that said, "Here be monsters." The last remaining territory on the planet that could have such a designation is Antarctica.
Although it was discovered nearly 250 years ago, scientists have more questions than answers when it comes to this frozen continent. Due to the sheer depth of the ice covering its landmass, the surface of Antarctica is unable to be seen with the naked eye. And ancient astronaut theorists propose that it is not just the geology that is hidden from us. They suggest there is far more human and perhaps non-human activity happening in Antarctica than we've been told.
Something seems to be going on this mysterious continent at the South Pole. And it has been theorized by a number of people that Antarctica is some kind of alien base.
Rumors of extraterrestrial activity in Antarctica have circulated for years. If these accounts are true, and there is, in fact, an extraterrestrial presence in Antarctica today, could it have been there for hundreds or even thousands of years? In July 2018, Linda Moulton Howe interviewed a whistleblower who offered to provide her with classified information regarding Antarctica on the condition that she not reveal his identity. Her source, a retired Navy SEAL who she identifies as Spartan 1, provided her with details of an ancient structure he claims to have visited during his time at the South Pole.
At that time, my rank was First Lieutenant Commander, Naval Special Operations. We were inbound the southeast coast of Antarctica. We were dispatched for, unofficially, was a research reconnaissance mission. Officially, it was to find a certain individual, obtain any information, and bring it back.
What was the date?
August 2003.
According to Spartan 1, when he and his team reached their destination, they encountered a large octagonal structure protruding from the ice. Cautiously, they proceeded to enter it.
At the very top of the first structure that we entered, there was almost 18 feet poking from the ice. The rest of it was hidden under the ice. Each door was the same, anywhere from 18 feet thick to around 30 feet thick. And even though these doors were that thick and that heavy, you could take one finger and push them and they would open. There was no resistance whatsoever. The outside temperature was at least 40 degrees below zero. Once you stepped inside these structures, the temperature was an ambient 68 to 72 degrees.
What about the ceilings, hallways, floors?
It was lighted from the inside, but we could not find the source of light. It was a lime green in color. The walls were lined with what I call hieroglyphics, but nothing of hieroglyphics that I've ever seen in my life.
Could there really be mysterious structures buried at the South Pole? Structures built by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization in our remote past.
Buried underneath the ice in Antarctica could well be stone temple constructions. There could be biological material, remains of beings that lived there and could still be there. It could be the greatest reveal in all of human history.
The Bible's book of Genesis. In chapter 6, verse 9, begins the story of Noah and the flood, in which God sends a great deluge to rid the earth of sinners and start anew. Different versions of this same story exist in nearly every ancient tradition around the world.
Going back 5,000 years, we have sacred texts that tell us there was an antediluvian civilization. There was a great flood and that there were survivors. The Mesopotamians speak of this in the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Egyptians speak of this in the Edfu creation text. Plato learned from the Egyptians that there was once a civilization called Atlantis that existed 9,000 years before his time.
Plato wrote about the lost continent of Atlantis in 2 of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, around 360 BC. Historians and researchers have long debated whether this pre-flood civilization was purely mythological or actually existed. Arguments have been made suggesting remnants of Plato's destroyed civilization could be found at the South Pole.
I think what happened in Antarctica was that approximately 13,000 years ago, that flourishing civilization that originally came from space and establishing its presence in Antarctica was flash frozen. We actually have ancient evidence of this in the form of Plato's dialogues, where he talks about the last days of Atlantis. That basically is informing us that Atlantis was an extraterrestrial colony that had established itself on Earth, and that after a pole shift, Atlantis was moved under the ice where the South Pole currently is.
Scientific anomalies, radar and satellite images, eyewitness accounts. As more and more pieces of the puzzle start to come together, might we soon be able to solve the mystery of the Antarctic continent? And if so, just what might we discover?
Modern whistleblowers still argue that there is more about Antarctica that is being covered up than we think. There are entire bases down there, entire civilizations, that the world's governments are working with aliens.
They know about the buried artifacts, they know about the ancient civilizations down there, and they know about the extraterrestrial civilizations that continue to operate in Antarctica at the very moment.
It's totally possible that Antarctica contains an extraterrestrial home base on Earth. It's a totally isolated part of the planet. It's completely uninhabited, or was until recently. It's ideal.
August 26, 1946. A U.S. scientific expedition called Operation High Jump departs for the South Pole. It is led by esteemed naval officer and explorer, Admiral Richard Byrd.
Admiral Richard Byrd was a very important admiral in the United States Navy. He graduated the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. He fought in World War I, and after the war, he became an explorer.
In 1926, Byrd made worldwide headlines when he and Navy Chief Aviation Pilot Floyd Bennett became the first people to ever fly over the North Pole. For their efforts, both men received the Congressional Medal of Honor. Later, when Byrd, at the age of 41, made the first solo flight over the South Pole, he became the youngest person ever promoted to the rank of admiral in the history of the United States Navy. In 1946, Byrd oversaw Operation High Jump, the largest Antarctic expedition to date. The massive military convoy included 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and 4,700 troops.
The U.S. Navy sent down a flotilla of ships under command of Admiral Byrd. and they came back after about 9 months in Antarctica. Apparently, they actually fought a battle in Antarctica, probably between remnants of the Third Reich and perhaps extraterrestrials as well. There were stories of craft coming up out of the water and attacking them.
Flying saucers dealt a very heavy defeat to Byrd's Operation High Jump. He gave a report in March of 1947 that said a new enemy had been discovered that could fly from pole to pole in an instant.
In 2018, more than 70 years after Byrd's astounding claim, a satellite image captured what appeared to be a condensed water trail from an aircraft, or contrail, that could only have been produced by something traveling at incredibly high speeds.
It extended the entire length of the Earth, longitudinally from the North Pole to the South Pole, which is 12,000 miles.
The maximum length of time that a contrail can maintain its shape is 30 minutes, but most dissipate in less than 15. Only a craft capable of traveling faster than 50,000 miles per hour, or 10 times the speed of the fastest aircraft in existence today, could leave a contrail that would stretch the entire length of the Earth without breaking up.
It's a seeming impossibility because it meant that some object was able to traverse the entire planet from pole to pole in a matter of minutes before the contrail disappeared.
Whatever created that was going beyond Mach 10. Mach 10 is over 8,000 miles per hour. This was probably going much, much faster than that. So whatever it was something that more than likely we've never seen before.
In the 21st century, satellite photography has allowed anyone with an internet connection to access images of Antarctica. In 2016, a striking image was discovered of a seemingly man-made entrance carved into an Antarctic mountain range.
This is a legitimate satellite image of a very large, proportionate hole in the ground, or the mountain range. This looks intelligently designed to suit a specific craft that flies through this particular opening.
Similarly, in 2018, internet researchers released the coordinates for what they describe as a UFO crash-landed on the Antarctic island of South Georgia.
The photographs are really compelling because this is not somebody making believe something is there. You can actually see the skid marks. It actually looks as though an object is moving along that ice. But the thing that so intrigued people looking at those images were that the skid marks were straight.
Some ancient astronaut theorists have noted that the shape of the alleged craft is very similar to a mysterious celestial object that was detected entering our solar system in October 2017. Called Oumuamua, the object was initially identified as an asteroid, but its shape, trajectory, and acceleration were so unexpected that the chair of Harvard's astronomy department, Avi Loeb, suggested that Oumuamua might be an alien probe.
It's a very curious image of this large, oblong, tubular-shaped craft that seems to have crashed into the ice and then skidded along. And it really looks like this interstellar asteroid, Oumuamua, that could easily be a spacecraft.
The actual craft itself is right around 50 yards in length. This is the wider view of this object that quite possibly came in at an angle, ricocheted off of the base of this mountain, and that's what gave it the momentum to skid several thousands of feet. You can definitely see the mountain. There's some disturbance here where this track leads back to from this unidentified object. This very well could be a crash landing based off of what we're seeing at the bottom of the mountain, yes.
Is it possible that online researchers using satellite technology actually located the crashed remnants of an extraterrestrial vehicle and the opening to an underground alien base?
There's been a lot of talk about underground bases in Antarctica, and certain satellite photos show mountain areas that have unusual caverns in them, literal windows that are the shape of a flying saucer.
Is it possible that secret, perhaps extraterrestrial bases are hidden beneath the ice on Antarctica? McMurdo Station, Antarctica. Located on the southern peninsula of Ross Island, this is the largest research station on the continent. It was opened by the U.S. government in 1956 and houses up to as many as 1,200 residents at a time. In January of 2015, a U.S. Navy flight engineer who served with the Antarctic Development Squadron at McMurdo for 14 years, came forward to investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe with bizarre accounts of his time in Antarctica.
In January 2015, I got an email from a retired naval flight engineer. He's asked me to call him only Brian in the world public, and this is what he told me. From about 1983 to when he retired from the Navy in 1997. He was in all kinds of what they call Antarctic Squadron expedition missions that included rescuing people in and out of various places. In all these trips, nothing of a high strangeness had occurred, and then all of a sudden it was one thing after another. During a squadron mission in the Transantarctic Mountains, the whole crew saw a whole bunch of silver darting objects, and they are round. And he says they're doing the strangest thing. They're going like to this peak in a group, to this peak in a group, to this peak in a group, and then they'd all take off. And not only did this happen once, it happened over and over.
According to the informant, this was just one of many strange mysteries on the continent that he witnessed during his time there.
They get an assignment not long after there's a medical emergency. They are now under the gun, the clock is ticking, and a decision was made. They're going over through the no-fly zone because it's a medical emergency. And what do they see? In the ice, like a huge entrance to a cave, but slanted going down. And he said, I think it was at least, Linda, 200 feet in diameter, a big hole in the ice. And he said, our instruments are not operating. We were losing electricity. We had magnetic anomalies. And we concluded there's something about this hole that is now causing these problems. They do their medical recovery, and the next thing they know, they're all being chewed out by men in suits that are not from McMurdo. They appear to be from Washington, D.C., and as he said, they told us that we are never, ever to fly over that hole, and we are never to discuss it again. What is that about? And does that have anything to do with all these other pieces that keep emerging? That there might be something archaeological in Antarctica.
According to ancient astronaut theorists, this was not the first time a massive hole has been spotted in the ice of Antarctica. Famous polar explorer Admiral Richard Byrd allegedly reported seeing a massive entrance to an underground world during his 1947 expedition to the South Pole.
Admiral Byrd made a lot of unusual statements, allegedly talking about a large opening at the South Pole that went deep inside the Earth, ice-free, and was inhabited by various sorts of aliens. And when Byrd got back to the United States, he was brought back to Washington, where he was questioned very heavily about his statements. And allegedly, he was told to stop talking about this. You have to wonder, is the South Pole some kind of extraterrestrial entry zone? Some kind of portal that's so important that it has to be controlled by the military?
While it may seem unthinkable that pyramids could exist in Antarctica, in recent years, archaeologists have found pyramids all over the world that had been lost for centuries, mistaken as natural formations, or hidden in the most unlikely places. They have been discovered in the plains of northern Peru, buried beneath dirt and rubble in Indonesia, and one may even exist in Los Angeles, California.
All the way around the world, we find evidence of pyramid structures. We should start looking at the possibility that there was habitation on Antarctica. Was it a lost civilization? Could it be ancient astronauts? And just maybe the earliest monuments of our own civilization came originally from Antarctica.
If this gigantic pyramid in Antarctica is an artificial structure, it would probably be the oldest pyramid on our planet. And in fact, it might be the master pyramid that all the other pyramids on planet Earth were designed to look like.
There has been extensive research done on pyramids throughout the world in terms of their structure and what it is that they really are. And one of the theories is that pyramids are power generators. And so if you have these pyramids strategically placed around the world generating this charge, it's possible to create a general standing wave around the world that is basically a wireless transmission of energy.
It's been theorized that ancient ships, extraterrestrials, and those with high technology could use this interconnected wireless energy system to navigate around the planet. And it makes sense that if there was some kind of worldwide pyramid power grid like this, that Antarctica would have pyramids as well.
The whole idea of these pyramidal structures, where did it come from? Because it's not an arbitrary thing. And these structures, they exist worldwide. So, what was the impetus? What's the origin? And even more fascinating, did they originate on the Antarctic continent?
Might the pyramid Joseph White claims to have discovered near the Shackleton mountain range and other pyramid-shaped formations recently photographed in Antarctica provide evidence of extraterrestrial visitation to our planet in the remote past? And if they are actually man-made structures, how is such a thing even possible in a place that has been buried beneath the ice for over 12 million years? According to ancient astronaut theorists, Antarctica may not have been a frozen continent for as long as mainstream scientists suggest. And they say proof can be found by examining a 500-year-old map depicting the continent without any ice. East Antarctica, October 2015. Scientists at NASA announced that despite years of thinking otherwise, they are now finding that the ice in this region is actually growing, averaging 82 billion tons a year. Snowfall is currently adding ice to most of the continent, but at the same time, glaciers are rapidly melting along the coast of western Antarctica. Scientists calculate that since 2009, as much as 60 cubic kilometers of ice, the equivalent of 70,000 Empire State Buildings, is disappearing into the ocean each year. But why is the ice here melting when it is growing throughout much of the rest of the continent?
We see these graphic pictures on television of the ice caps melting and falling into the sea. But It's actually only in some areas that the ice caps are actually melting. What's so strange is that through various factors, that the ice in Antarctica might actually be growing and extending. This is very strange.
We can't rule out the possibility that in certain cases, there could be entire cities that are built underground that may even be actively maintained by extraterrestrials now, and that as those cities are powered up or expanded in size, that they are giving off some kind of heat, and that heat in turn is melting the ice above them.
If there are things buried under the miles of ice at Antarctica, then that would mean that had to have happened before the last ice age. So who knows what we'll find there? Remnants of a lost civilization, perhaps even tools with which these civilizations were built.
It's possible that underneath the ice will be keys for us to actually save ourselves and reclaim our ancient past.
We may end up in a situation where this can't be covered up anymore, where visible ruins, gigantic pyramids, gigantic obelisks start to peek through the ice. And at that point, it's game over. No longer can this be swept under the rug.
There's no question that under the ice of Antarctica, there could be extraterrestrial craft, there could be cities down there. Bottom line is, it will shock the entire belief system of humankind. It will just change everything we know.
What really lies beneath the ice and snow in Antarctica? Was this frozen continent once covered with lush vegetation, as well as pyramids that predate those in Egypt? And if extraterrestrials truly did inhabit Antarctica, could these otherworldly visitors still be hiding out there today? Edfu, Egypt. Located on the western bank of the Nile, the Temple of Edfu is one of the largest and most well-preserved temples of the ancient kingdom, dating back to 237 BC.
The Edfu temple is of tremendous importance. As you enter the temple, it's like you're going inside a book. It's literally full of texts. Every wall, every column, every room, every chamber is filled with texts. They're known collectively as the Edfu texts. What is very interesting is that the majority of these texts speak about the creation of the world.
According to the texts, the earth was created by powerful gods who came down from the sky. And these gods first established a place known as the Island of the Egg.
Two gods, they created an island in the middle of the eternal lake. Creation started with that island.
The occupants of this so-called primordial mythical world, very strange creatures. There seems to be three groups of people. One called the sages, one called the builders, and the other called the Sheptiu. Nobody knows who they are. These are the ones that are very mysterious because they are said to emerge from the water. Then the Egyptians believed a series of gods came and built the first temples.
It says that here the first temples were built, the first ones ever in the world, and that these became the blueprint for every temple in Egypt.
Once all the creator gods have done their job with creating the world, they would meet with their big bird and ascend to the sky. Ancient Egyptians believed with all their heart that everything listed and inscribed on these walls are true, true, true. If the walls say there's an island in the middle of nowhere where gods would go and ascend to the sky, then ancient Egyptians, the devoted ones, would believe that island exists.
According to the Edfu texts, not all of the occupants left. And after many generations, the island suffered a terrible fate.
The texts are very different as to what happens to the occupants. These strange gods, they seem to, once they have set the scene, once they have built the temples, they hand over their work to the historical lineage, and then they depart. We don't know where they go. There seems to be something very interesting here. There seems to be a war going on. The armies of these divinities is led by this falcon god, and he battles a kind of enemy represented by snake.
In the skies appeared what was known as the enemy snake. It had a name. It was called the Great Leaping One. And it was said that immediately it appeared, there was a time of darkness, and there were suddenly floods that destroyed this sacred island. And when the waters receded, these original beings, who were known as the Ancient Ones or the Elder Ones, were now no longer there. Perhaps the Great Leaping One, this enemy snake, was the memory of the comet that entered into our inner solar system, broke up, causing devastation and destruction.
Might the account of this ancient catastrophe, inscribed on the walls of the Edfu Temple, be describing a natural event? Or was it a deliberate attack? An attack targeting an otherworldly civilization existing on what we now know as the Antarctic continent.